These small anomalies, these fleeting glimpses behind the Alex Stone facade, started to coalesce into a nagging suspicion. Ilara dismissed them as her overactive imagination, or perhaps Alex was simply far more talented and ambitious than he let on. Yet, a seed of unease had been planted. There was something about Alex that didn't quite add up, a depth and authority that seemed to contradict his unassuming role. His first day as Alex Stone was a jarring shift from his usual routine. Instead of private elevators and hushed greetings, he navigated crowded hallways, fumbled with a new ID badge, and tried to decipher the labyrinthine cubicle farm. He was assigned to the administrative department, a world away from the strategic boardrooms he commanded. His new desk was nestled between a perpetually stressed marketing assistant and a quiet, diligent figure whose presence seemed to anchor the entire floor. Alexander, acutely aware of Ilara's growing curiosity, knew his time was running out. The longer he delayed, the greater the risk of her discovering the truth on her own, a discovery that would undoubtedly be far more painful than a controlled revelation. He had to prepare her, subtly, for the shock without giving away his hand. He began to drop hints about major changes coming to the company, about the importance of transparency and authentic leadership. He spoke of the burdens of power and the loneliness that often accompanied it, hoping she would see the deeper meaning in his words. That figure was Ilara Vance. The internal conflict raged within him. He loved her, truly and deeply. He believed in her kindness, her resilience, her unwavering spirit. But he also knew that the truth, when it came, would be a seismic shock. He had to trust that the foundation of genuine connection they had built, the shared moments of vulnerability and support, would be strong enough to withstand the inevitable tremor. The gala loomed, a grand stage for a grand revelation, and Alexander knew, with a mixture of dread and desperate hope, that the moment of reckoning was finally at hand. The night of the annual Sterling Innovations Gala arrived, a dazzling spectacle of wealth, power, and ambition. The grand ballroom of the city's most prestigious hotel shimmered under the glow of crystal chandeliers, filled with the murmur of high society chatter and the clinking of champagne flutes. This was Alexander Sterling's domain, a stage he usually commanded with effortless authority. Tonight, however, his heart hammered with a different kind of anticipation, a nervous energy that transcended corporate strategy. Ilara was an administrative assistant, a cog in the vast machinery of Sterling Innovations. Yet she moved with an understated grace that belied her seemingly mundane tasks. Her desk, though piled with documents, was meticulously organized, a testament to her quiet efficiency. Alexander, observing her from his new vantage point, noticed the subtle lines of fatigue around her eyes. Yet her movements were precise, her focus unwavering. She answered phones with a soft, patient voice. Even when dealing with demanding callers, she offered a kind word to a struggling intern, a quick, reassuring smile that seemed to momentarily lift the weight from their shoulders. Ilara Vance stepped into the ballroom, transformed. Gone were the sensible office clothes, replaced by an elegant, flowing gown in a deep sapphire blue that complemented her eyes and highlighted her graceful figure. Her hair was swept up in a soft, intricate style, and a delicate silver necklace, a gift from Lily, glittered at her throat. She looked breathtaking, a quiet star amidst the glittering crowd, yet she carried herself with the same unassuming dignity Alexander had always admired. She was invited to present the achievements of the Compassion Project, a testament to her invaluable efforts, and a moment Alexander had meticulously orchestrated. Their first interaction was unremarkable. A brief exchange about a misplaced file. Ilara, her brow furrowed in concentration, had patiently guided him through the company's archaic filing system. "It's a bit of a maze at first," she'd said, her voice gentle, "but you'll get the hang of it." Her eyes, a warm hazel, held a depth that intrigued him. There was no pretense, no fawning, just simple, genuine helpfulness. Alexander, still in his Alex Stone persona, stood by her side, a sharp contrast to the lavish surroundings. He wore a modest suit, blending into the background, yet his gaze never left Ilara. He saw the slight nervousness in her posture, the way she smoothed her dress, and a fierce protectiveness surged through him. He offered her a reassuring smile, a silent promise of support. "You'll be amazing," he whispered, his voice a steady anchor in the swirling grandeur. As the day wore on, Alexander found himself drawn to her quiet resilience. He watched her juggle multiple tasks with effortless calm, her fingers flying across the keyboard, her attention never wavering. He saw her politely decline lunch invitations, opting instead for a modest sandwich at her desk, occasionally glancing at her phone with a worried expression before quickly composing herself. There was a story in those fleeting moments, a narrative of quiet struggle and unwavering dedication that resonated deeply within him. As guests mingled, Bethany Thorne, dressed in a striking but overly ornate gown, moved through the crowd, her eyes darting between Alara and Alex. She'd been humiliated by her recent exposure, but her malice had not dissipated. Instead, it had festered, transforming into a desperate desire for revenge. She saw Alara's newfound recognition, her elegant appearance, and the quiet intimacy between her and Alex, and a venomous envy coiled within her. She sensed a shift in the atmosphere, a heightened anticipation, and her predatory instincts told her an opportunity was brewing. She would be ready to strike. He had come seeking truth, and in Alara Vance, he felt he had found a glimmer of it. Her kindness wasn't a performance, it was an intrinsic part of her being. Her dedication wasn't for show, it was a necessity. His initial professional curiosity had already begun its subtle transformation, morphing into something far more profound. This mundane first day as Alex Stone was, in fact, the quiet genesis of a journey he never anticipated, a journey that would challenge his perceptions, test his resolve, and ultimately redefine his understanding of true value. The initial days of Alexander's undercover mission blurred into a rhythm of observation and quiet assimilation. As Alex Stone, he found himself immersed in the mundane yet revealing routines of the administrative department. He attended team meetings where his usual commanding presence was replaced by a deferential silence, listening to the concerns and triumphs of his colleagues. He navigated the subtle hierarchies and unspoken rules of office life, a world far removed from the strategic battles he typically fought. But above all, his focus remained fixed on Alara Vance. The evening progressed with speeches and accolades, building towards the main event, the presentation of the Compassion Project. Alara, taking a deep breath, walked to the podium, the spotlight illuminating her. She spoke with heartfelt sincerity, her voice clear and resonant, detailing the project's journey and its profound impact on the community. She spoke of hope, resilience, and the power of collective kindness, her words moving many in the audience. Alexander watched from the side, his chest swelling with pride. This was the Alara he knew, the woman whose quiet strength had changed his world. From his vantage point, Alexander became a silent witness to Alara's daily life within Sterling Innovations. He saw her arrive early, often with a thermos of tea and a worn paperback, settling into her desk before anyone else. He observed her meticulous work ethic, how she handled every task, no matter how small, with unwavering dedication. She was the first to offer help when a new intern fumbled with the printer, the one who remembered a colleague's birthday and quietly left a small cupcake on their desk, and the patient ear for anyone needing to vent about a particularly demanding client. As Alara concluded her presentation to a round of warm applause, the CEO was announced. And now, please welcome the visionary leader behind Sterling Innovations, Mr. Alexander Sterling. One afternoon, a new, visibly overwhelmed junior designer, clutching a stack of urgent printouts, tripped, scattering papers across the busy hallway. Before anyone else could react, Alara was already kneeling, gathering the sheets with swift, practiced movements. She didn't make a fuss or draw attention to herself. She simply helped, offering a reassuring smile and a quiet, "It happens to the best of us." Alexander watched, a strange warmth spreading through him. It was a small act, easily overlooked, but it spoke volumes about her character. The lights dimmed for a moment, then brightened on the main stage. A hush fell over the ballroom. Alexander felt his heart pound against his ribs. This was it, the moment of truth. He took a deep breath, his gaze finding Alara's, a silent plea for understanding in his eyes. He noticed how she navigated the subtle currents of office politics with a quiet dignity. There were colleagues who took advantage of her helpful nature, piling extra work on her, or taking credit for her efforts, yet Alara never complained. She would sigh softly, perhaps run a hand through her hair, and then simply tackle the additional tasks with the same quiet determination. Alexander found himself clenching his fists, a CEO's protective instinct warring with his undercover persona. He wanted to intervene, to call out the injustices, but he knew his role was to observe, to understand. Elara, standing near the podium, turned her head, expecting to see the familiar, imposing figure of the CEO. But as the spotlight settled, a figure emerged from the shadows, walking with a familiar gait, a figure that made her breath catch in her throat. It was Alex. Her mind reeled, trying to reconcile the unassuming colleague with the powerful CEO. Confusion, disbelief, and a sharp pang of betrayal began to bloom in her chest. His admiration for her deepened with each passing day. He saw her politely decline after-work gatherings, always with a vague but firm excuse. He noticed the way she conserved her lunch, sometimes packing half of it away. There was a quiet intensity in her eyes when she checked her phone, a fleeting shadow of worry that would quickly be masked by a composed expression. These were not the signs of someone living a carefree life. They were the subtle tells of a person carrying a heavy burden, yet doing so with remarkable grace. Bethany, watching from the periphery, a cruel smile forming on her lips, sensed the impending chaos. She knew, with a chilling certainty, that this was her moment. The stage was set, not just for a revelation, but for a dramatic unraveling. The grand ballroom. Moments ago, a symphony of polite applause and hushed conversations, now held its breath, suspended in a moment of profound shock. Alara's world tilted on its axis. The man walking towards the podium, bathed in the blinding spotlight, was undeniably Alex. Her Alex. But the voice that had just announced him, the title that had just been uttered, Mr. Alexander Sterling, CEO of Sterling Innovations, ripped through her understanding like a jagged shard of glass. One particularly stressful day, the entire department was scrambling to meet a tight deadline. The air was thick with tension and tempers frayed. A senior manager, under immense pressure, snapped at Alara over a minor error. Alexander braced himself for a reaction, perhaps a tearful retreat or a sharp retort. Instead, Alara simply nodded, her gaze steady, and calmly explained the situation, offering a solution before the manager could even finish his tirade. Her composure in the face of unfairness was astonishing. He reached the podium, his gaze fixed on her, a silent plea for understanding in his eyes, but all Alara could feel was a crushing wave of betrayal. The kind, unassuming colleague, the silent protector, the friend she had come to rely on, the man she was falling for, was a lie. A meticulously crafted, elaborate lie. Her mind reeled, trying to reconcile the two identities, the two realities, and failing spectacularly. He saw her later that day, alone at her desk, long after most had left. She was meticulously organizing files, her shoulders slightly slumped, but her movements still precise. He approached her, feigning a need for a document. "Long day, huh?" he offered, his voice softer than he intended. Alexander, sensing her immediate withdrawal, felt a pang of agony. This was exactly what he had feared. He took a deep breath, his voice, now resonating with the authority of a CEO, filling the stunned silence. "Good evening, everyone. I know many of you are surprised to see me here. In this capacity, for the past few months, I've been working among you, under the name Alex Stone." Alara looked up, a tired but genuine smile gracing her lips. "Just making sure everything's ready for tomorrow," she replied, her voice a little weary, but still kind. "It's always better to get ahead." A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd. Disbelief, whispers of undercover boss, and outright confusion. Alexander continued, his voice unwavering, though his eyes remained on Alara. "My intention was not to deceive, but to truly understand the heart and soul of Sterling Innovations, to see beyond the reports and presentations, to witness the dedication, the challenges, and the genuine character of the people who make this company what it is." He began by leveraging his unparalleled access, albeit carefully, to company records. Not in a way that would raise suspicion, but through the peripheral data that often accompanied employee profiles. He learned of a younger sister, Lily, listed as an emergency contact, and a home address in a less affluent part of the city. These were mere breadcrumbs, but to Alexander, they were clues to Ilara's unspoken burdens. He paused, letting his words sink in. And what I found, what truly moved me, was the unwavering spirit of kindness, resilience, and integrity embodied by one individual in particular, Alara Vance. One evening, feigning a late night at the office, Alexander followed Alara from a distance. He watched as she boarded a series of buses, her shoulders hunched against the evening chill, a worn backpack slung over one shoulder. Her journey led her to a modest, older apartment building, its facade showing signs of wear. He waited, hidden in the shadows, and saw her enter. A few minutes later, a faint light flickered on in one of the windows. He turned fully towards Alara, who stood frozen, her face pale, her eyes wide with a mixture of shock and hurt. "Alara," he said, his voice softening, a raw vulnerability creeping into his tone that only she could truly discern. "You are the embodiment of everything I hope to find. Your dedication to the Compassion Project, your unwavering empathy, your strength in the face of adversity, and your boundless kindness have not only transformed this company, but have profoundly changed me." His investigation, however, truly deepened when he discreetly accessed medical records linked to company benefits. What he discovered sent a jolt through him, a mixture of profound sympathy and a burning desire to help. Lily, Alara's younger sister, was battling a severe chronic illness, requiring frequent hospitalizations and expensive specialized treatments. The medical bills were astronomical, far exceeding what Alara's administrative assistant salary could possibly cover. He then, with a bold, public gesture, began to confess the truth of his feelings. "I came here seeking truth, and I found it in you. I found something far more valuable than any corporate insight. I found a connection, a respect, and a love that grew from witnessing your true character. The deception was born from a desire to see the real you, unburdened by my position. And I truly, deeply regret any pain this revelation causes you." This revelation painted a stark picture of Alara's reality, her quiet sacrifices, her diligent work ethic, her refusal to complain. It all made agonizing sense now. Every extra hour she put in, every penny she saved, every moment of worry etched on her face was for Lily. She wasn't just working for herself, she was fighting for her sister's life, carrying a weight that would crush most people, yet doing so with an almost superhuman resilience. The sincerity in his voice was palpable. But for Alara, it was too much, too soon. The words love and deception clashed violently in her mind. Her heart ached, not just from the shock, but from the sudden, brutal realization that every shared moment, every quiet confidence, had been built on a foundation of lies. Alexander's heart ached for her. He imagined the sleepless nights, the constant anxiety, the relentless pressure of being the sole provider and caregiver. He saw the quiet strength in her, not as a facade, but as a deeply ingrained survival mechanism. He witnessed her making difficult choices, prioritizing Lily's needs above her own, often foregoing basic comforts. He saw her eating a simple, packed lunch while others ordered expensive takeout, her eyes occasionally lingering on the vibrant, bustling street outside, perhaps dreaming of a different life, but never succumbing to bitterness. Just as Alexander finished his heartfelt confession, a shrill, triumphant voice cut through the air. "What a touching story, Mr. Sterling." Bethany Thorne emerged from the crowd, a cruel, knowing smirk plastered across her face. Or should I say, "What a fantastic performance. It seems Miss Vance has quite the talent for manipulating powerful men. First, she befriends the junior colleague, then she conveniently becomes the star employee of a pet project. And now, she's the subject of the CEO's public affections. How convenient." He recalled an incident from a few days prior. A colleague had been complaining loudly about a minor inconvenience, a delayed coffee order, while Alara had simply offered a sympathetic nod, her own struggles far outweighing such trivialities. Alexander had felt a surge of contempt for the colleague's self-absorption, contrasting it sharply with Alara's quiet dignity. Bethany's words, laced with venom and false righteousness, struck Alara like a physical blow. The crowd, already bewildered, now buzzed with renewed speculation. Alara felt a fresh wave of humiliation wash over her, her eyes darting frantically between Alexander, Bethany, and the judging faces in the crowd. The gala, meant to be a celebration, had devolved into a public spectacle, and Alara found herself at its agonizing center. exposed, and heartbroken. The grand ballroom, once a symbol of corporate triumph, had become a crucible of raw emotion. Ilara stood utterly exposed, the weight of Bethany's venomous words crushing her. The shock of Alexander's revelation, coupled with the public humiliation, sent a searing pain through her heart. She felt a profound sense of betrayal, not just by Alexander's elaborate deception, but by the very trust she had so freely given to Alex Stone. Every kind word, every shared laugh, every moment of quiet understanding now felt tainted, a cruel manipulation. The more he learned, the more his respect for Ilara deepened, transforming into something far more profound than mere admiration. It was a fierce protectiveness, a desperate need to alleviate her suffering. He, Alexander Sterling, a man who commanded billions, felt utterly helpless in the face of her quiet, relentless battle. He wanted to sweep away her burdens, to provide Lily with the best care, to give Ilara the peace of mind she so desperately deserved. But he was Alex Stone, a junior employee with limited means, bound by the constraints of his disguise. Her eyes, once wide with shock, narrowed, filling with unshed tears and a fierce, wounded pride. She couldn't bear to look at Alexander, the man who stood before her, both her savior and her deceiver. The glittering crowd, once a blur, now felt like 1,000 judging eyes, their whispers a deafening roar in her ears. She wanted to disappear, to vanish from this agonizing spectacle. The deception, which had initially felt like a clever strategy, now began to chafe. He longed to shed the facade, to reveal his true identity and offer her the boundless resources at his disposal. But the fear of shattering the fragile trust they had built, the genuine connection forged in shared office moments, held him back. He knew that revealing his true self prematurely could be disastrous, potentially alienating the very person he had grown to care for so deeply. "Ilara, please," Alexander pleaded, his voice laced with desperation, attempting to step towards her. "Let me explain." He watched her leave the office late again one evening, her silhouette against the setting sun. He saw the slight slump in her shoulders, the weariness in her step, but also the unwavering determination in her gaze. He knew, with absolute certainty, that he could not stand by and do nothing. He had to help her, not as the CEO, but as Alex Stone, a colleague who had witnessed her quiet heroism and was now irrevocably drawn into her world. The weight of her world had become, in a profound and unexpected way, the weight on his own heart, the weight on Alexander's heart. The profound empathy he felt for Ilara propelled him into action. He couldn't reveal his true identity. Not yet, but he couldn't stand idly by either. He had to help her, subtly, anonymously, as Alex Stone. His vast resources and intricate knowledge of Sterling innovations, usually deployed for corporate strategy, were now channeled into a singular, clandestine mission alleviating Ilara's burdens. But Ilara recoiled, a visceral reaction of hurt and anger. "Explain what, Mr. Sterling?" Her voice, though trembling, carried a surprising steel. "Explain how you played me, how you used my life, my struggles, as some kind of corporate experiment." She didn't wait for an answer. With a choked sob, she turned and fled, pushing past bewildered guests, her elegant gown a blur of sapphire against the opulent backdrop. The exit sign, a beacon of escape, was all she could focus on. His first move was to address the financial strain. He knew, from his discreet inquiries, that Ilara often missed out on internal training opportunities that could lead to promotions, simply because she couldn't afford the time away or the minimal associated costs. Alexander, through a convoluted series of anonymous emails and system adjustments, ensured that a new, fully funded employee development grant was quietly introduced, specifically tailored to cover such expenses for high-potential, underserved employees. He then, with careful precision, ensured Ilara's application for a crucial project management course was fast-tracked and approved. Complete with a stipend for her time, Ilara received the notification with a mixture of disbelief and profound gratitude, attributing it to a stroke of luck or a new company initiative. Alexander watched her go, a profound ache in his chest. He had anticipated her anger, her hurt, but the depth of her pain, the raw betrayal in her eyes, was more devastating than he had imagined. He wanted to follow her, to chase after her and beg for forgiveness, but the crowd, now a chaotic mix of shock and morbid curiosity, pressed in. Next, he tackled the subtle sabotage by Bethany and others. Alexander, with his CEO-level access, had a complete overview of all internal communications and project workflows. He noticed how Bethany would subtly delay forwarding crucial emails to Alara, or accidentally misplace documents vital to her tasks. As Alex Stone, he would conveniently find the missing documents just in time or remind Bethany about an overlooked email. Always with a plausible excuse, he became Alara's silent guardian, a seemingly ordinary colleague who always seemed to be in the right place at the right time. Bethany Thorne, seeing the chaos she had unleashed, seized her opportunity for maximum damage. She stepped forward, her voice amplified by the sudden silence that followed Alara's dramatic exit. "You see, ladies and gentlemen," she announced, her tone dripping with false concern. "This is what happens when ambition overrides integrity. Ms. Vance has been exploiting Mr. Sterling's kindness, weaving a web of deceit to climb the corporate ladder. She's nothing but a manipulative opportunist." One particularly frustrating morning, Alara was struggling with a complex spreadsheet for a presentation, a task far beyond her administrative duties. She looked visibly stressed, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. Alexander, feigning a need to access a shared drive, casually leaned over. "Having trouble with that formula?" he asked, his voice low. "I used to dabble a bit in advanced Excel. Mind if I take a quick look?" Alara, desperate, readily agreed. In a matter of minutes, Alexander, with a few swift, almost imperceptible keystrokes, optimized the entire sheet, making it not only functional but elegantly efficient. "Just a little trick I picked up," he mumbled, pulling back as Alara stared at the screen in awe. "You're a lifesaver, Alex," she exclaimed, her smile genuine and radiant. Her words, though baseless, found fertile ground in the bewildered crowd. Whispers turned into louder accusations. Alexander, his face hardening, turned his furious gaze on Bethany. "That is enough, Ms. Thorne," he roared, his CEO voice cutting through the din like a knife. "Your baseless accusations are slanderous and utterly false. Alara Vance is a woman of unparalleled integrity, and your malicious fabrications will not stand." These small, seemingly coincidental acts of assistance began to accumulate. He would subtly guide her towards overlooked internal job postings that matched her burgeoning skills, or accidentally leave a relevant industry report on her desk, knowing it would spark her interest and provide valuable insights. He even managed to arrange for a more flexible work schedule for her, citing departmental efficiency improvements, which subtly allowed her more time to care for Lily without raising suspicion. He tried to defend Alara, to explain the truth, but the damage was done. The seeds of doubt had been sown, and the narrative of Alara as a manipulative gold digger was already taking root in the minds of some. Alexander felt a surge of helplessness. He had wanted to protect her, to elevate her, but his grand revelation had inadvertently left her vulnerable to the very malice he sought to eradicate. Alara, unaware of the true orchestrator behind these fortunate turns, found herself increasingly grateful for Alex Stone. He was more than just a colleague. He was a quiet, unassuming presence who always seemed to offer a helping hand precisely when she needed it most. She saw his kindness, his genuine desire to help, and his steady, reassuring presence. She began to confide in him, sharing small snippets of her day, the challenges she faced, and her hopes for Lily's recovery. She saw him as a true friend, a beacon of support in a sometimes overwhelming world. He knew he had to act, and swiftly. He had to clear Alara's name, expose Bethany's true nature, and somehow, against all odds, win back the trust of the woman he loved. But as he stood on the stage, surrounded by the wreckage of his carefully planned unveiling, all he could feel was the agonizing distance between himself and Alara, a chasm of shattered trust that seemed impossible to bridge. The gala, meant to be a celebration, had become a public execution of Alara's reputation, and Alexander found himself reeling from the collateral damage of his own well-intentioned, yet ultimately flawed, plan. The aftermath of the gala was a maelstrom of public speculation and internal turmoil for Sterling Innovations. But for Alexander, it was a singular, agonizing mission to win back Alara's trust and clear her name. He knew words alone would not suffice. He needed actions, undeniable and profound. to bridge the chasm of betrayal that now separated them. For Alexander, each act of assistance, each grateful smile from Alara, was a profound reward. He wasn't just helping her, he was witnessing the profound impact of his actions on a life truly deserving of support. The joy he felt in her small victories, the relief in her tired eyes, far surpassed any satisfaction he derived from closing a multi-billion-dollar deal. The disguise, once a burden, now felt like a sacred trust, allowing him to connect with Alara on a level of authentic human kindness, unclouded by his power or her perceived status. He was falling deeper, not just into the role of Alex Stone, but into a genuine affection for Alara Vance, an affection born from observing her unwavering spirit and the quiet, immense weight she carried. As Alara's competence shone brighter, subtly aided by Alex Stone, it inevitably cast a shadow over others, particularly those who felt their own positions threatened. Among them was Bethany Thorne, a senior administrative assistant whose ambition far outstripped her actual talent. Bethany had always viewed Alara with a mixture of condescension and thinly veiled resentment, seeing her quiet diligence as an unwelcome challenge to her own perceived seniority. Now, with Alara seemingly gaining more recognition and even forming a bond with the new, surprisingly helpful Alex, Bethany's resentment festered into outright malice. His first priority was to publicly defend Alara and dismantle Bethany's malicious narrative. The morning after the gala, Alexander called an emergency press conference. With a calm, resolute demeanor, he addressed the media storm head-on. "The events of last night were deeply unfortunate," he began, his voice firm. "My decision to go undercover was solely to gain a true understanding of our company culture. And what I discovered, unequivocally, was the extraordinary integrity and dedication of Ms. Alara Vance. Any suggestion that she exploited my position or engaged in manipulative behavior is a baseless, defamatory lie." Bethany was a master of passive aggression and subtle sabotage. She wouldn't confront Alara directly. Instead, she preferred to work in the shadows, planting seeds of doubt and creating obstacles that were difficult to trace back to her. Alexander, with his heightened awareness and CEO-level insight, immediately recognized the pattern. He observed Bethany's lingering glances, the way her smile never quite reached her eyes when Alara was praised, and the carefully crafted accidents that seemed to plague Alara's workflow. He then revealed the meticulously gathered evidence of Bethany's sabotage, presenting irrefutable proof of her tampering with Alara's data and her history of undermining colleagues. He didn't just speak, he provided digital forensics, internal memos, and witness testimonies that painted a damning picture of Bethany's malicious actions. Ms. Thorne's accusations were a desperate attempt to deflect from her own misconduct, Alexander stated, his gaze unwavering. Her employment with Sterling Innovations has been terminated, and we are pursuing all legal avenues to address her slanderous claims. One morning, a critical report Alara had meticulously prepared for a departmental review mysteriously went missing from the shared drive. Alara, flustered, searched frantically, knowing the deadline was looming. Bethany, feigning helpfulness, offered a dismissive shrug. "Are you sure you saved it correctly?" "Alara, sometimes these things just vanish if you're not careful." Alexander, however, had seen Bethany lingering at Alara's computer just moments before. He discreetly accessed the system logs, confirming Bethany had indeed deleted the file. Unable to directly accuse her without revealing his hand, he discovered a backup version of the report on a rarely used server, presenting it to Alara with a casual, "Lucky I found this old version. Might save you some time." Alara was relieved, but a flicker of suspicion, quickly dismissed, crossed her mind regarding the file's disappearance. The media, initially skeptical, shifted their focus. The narrative began to turn, from Alara being a manipulative opportunist to a victim of corporate jealousy, and Alexander, a CEO fighting for justice. The sabotage escalated. Bethany began to spread insidious rumors, whispering about Alara's over-eagerness or implying she was trying too hard to impress. She would subtly undermine Alara's suggestions in meetings, or forget to include her in important email chains. The office atmosphere, once merely indifferent to Alara, began to turn subtly hostile in pockets, fueled by Bethany's poisonous whispers. Some colleagues, easily swayed, started to view Alara with suspicion, while others, more astute, noticed Bethany's increasingly transparent animosity. But public vindication was only half the battle. Alara remained unreachable. She had taken a leave of absence, retreating into her private world. Her phone unanswered. Her apartment door closed to him. Alexander respected her need for space, but he refused to give up. He sent her heartfelt, handwritten letters, not filled with apologies for his actions, but with explanations of his intentions, the depth of his regret for her pain, and the unwavering truth of his feelings. He spoke of how her kindness had transformed him, how he had fallen in love with the real Alara, not the one he had tested. Alexander watched, his anger simmering beneath his calm, Alex Stone exterior. He saw the toll it took on Alara, the way her shoulders would slump slightly when a colleague gave her a cold shoulder, or the faint tremor in her hands when she overheard a whispered comment. Yet, she never retaliated. She continued to work with the same quiet dedication, her kindness unwavering, even in the face of such petty cruelty. This only solidified Alexander's conviction that Alara was a rare gem, a person of true integrity. He also initiated a company-wide review of workplace culture, a direct response to his undercover observations and Bethany's toxic behavior. He implemented new policies promoting transparency, employee well-being, and a zero-tolerance stance on workplace bullying. He established an anonymous feedback system and personally oversaw its implementation, ensuring that every employee felt heard and valued. He wanted to build a sterling innovations that truly reflected the values Alara embodied. He began to meticulously document Bethany's actions, gathering irrefutable evidence of her malicious intent. Every deleted file, every missed email, every subtly disparaging remark was logged in his mental database, ready to be deployed at the opportune moment. He knew that simply exposing Bethany's actions wouldn't be enough. He needed to ensure she faced consequences that matched the severity of her psychological warfare. One afternoon, he received a call from Lily's doctor. Lily's condition had worsened, requiring an urgent, expensive procedure that Alara was struggling to afford. Alexander, without hesitation, intervened. He arranged for Lily to be transferred to the best facility, covered all medical expenses through an anonymous charitable foundation he secretly controlled, and ensured she received the most advanced care available. He did this not to buy Alara's forgiveness, but because it was the right thing to do, a genuine act of love and support for the woman he cherished and her beloved sister. The growing threat from Bethany, however, also served to push Alara closer to Alex. She found herself instinctively gravitating towards him during breaks, seeking his quiet counsel and steady presence. He was her anchor in the stormy seas of office politics, a silent confidant who understood her unspoken frustrations. She didn't know why. But being around Alex made the malicious whispers and subtle slights feel less potent. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, Alara began to receive subtle signs of his relentless efforts. She saw the news reports clearing her name. She heard from former colleagues about the positive changes sweeping through Sterling Innovations, the new culture of kindness and respect. And then, the most profound impact, Lily's health began to improve dramatically. Her medical burdens mysteriously lifted. As Bethany's actions grew bolder, fueled by her unchecked jealousy, Alexander knew the confrontation was inevitable. The delicate balance of his undercover mission was being tested. He had to protect Alara, not just from the immediate threats, but from the insidious erosion of her spirit. The stage was being set for a dramatic showdown, one that would force Alexander to walk a fine line between his disguised persona and his true power, all to defend the woman whose kindness had captivated his heart. Bethany's campaign of subtle sabotage reached its peak with a calculated public accusation designed to utterly discredit Alara. The administrative department was buzzing with the upcoming quarterly budget review, a high-stakes presentation that required meticulous data compilation. Alara, having worked tirelessly on her section, believed she had everything in order. However, Bethany, with cunning precision, tampered with a crucial data file on the shared network, altering key figures just hours before the presentation. One day, a package arrived at Alara's apartment. Inside was a small, beautifully crafted wooden bird, a symbol of hope and freedom. Attached was a simple note in Alexander's familiar handwriting for Lily, and for you, Alara, my love. Always, during the review meeting, led by a stern-faced senior executive, Alara began her presentation with confidence, but as she clicked through her slides, a collective gasp rippled through the room. The numbers on the screen were wildly inaccurate, contradicting the previous reports and making her section appear utterly incompetent. Alara's face drained of color, her voice faltering as she stared at the erroneous data. I don't understand, she stammered, her heart pounding. These aren't the figures I submitted. It was a small gesture, but it resonated deeply. Alara, sitting by Lily's bedside, finally allowed herself to weep. Tears of relief, exhaustion, and a tentative, fragile hope. Alexander's actions, his unwavering commitment to justice, his genuine love, and his quiet support for Lily were slowly, painstakingly, breaking through the walls around her shattered heart. The path to atonement was long and arduous, but Alexander was walking it with every fiber of his being, fighting not just for Alara's forgiveness, but for the very essence of justice and kindness he had found in her. The consequences of Bethany Thorne's actions were swift and severe. The internal investigation, spearheaded by Alexander himself, unearthed a long history of professional misconduct, petty sabotage, and malicious gossip. Her attempts to discredit Alara were merely the tip of an iceberg of unethical behavior. Faced with irrefutable evidence, Bethany was not only terminated from Sterling Innovations, but also faced legal repercussions for defamation and tampering with company data. Her public downfall served as a stark warning throughout the corporate world. Integrity, not manipulation, was the true path to success. Bethany, seated smugly in the corner, seized her moment. Perhaps Alara was simply overwhelmed. "Sir," she interjected, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "It's a lot of pressure. Handling such critical data. Mistakes happen." Her implication was clear. Alara was not just mistaken, but incapable. The senior executive's gaze hardened, and Alara felt a wave of humiliation wash over her. Her career, her reputation, everything she had worked so hard for, felt like it was crumbling. Beyond Bethany's individual fate, Alexander initiated a profound transformation within Sterling Innovations. The company, once a beacon of innovation, was now poised to become a model of ethical leadership and human-centric values. He launched the Sterling Renewal Initiative, a comprehensive program designed to foster a culture of transparency, empathy, and genuine collaboration. Anonymous feedback channels were strengthened, mentorship programs were expanded, and a new Kindness in the Workplace Award, inspired directly by Alara's example, was established to recognize employees who demonstrated exceptional compassion and support for their colleagues. Just as the executive was about to deliver a scathing reprimand, a calm, steady voice cut through the tense silence. "Excuse me, sir," Alex Stone said. Stepping forward, all eyes turned to him, surprised by the junior employee's unexpected intervention. "I believe there might be a system anomaly. I was working on a related project late last night and noticed some unusual activity on the network drive where these files are stored. The changes were palpable. The atmosphere in the office shifted from one of quiet competition to genuine camaraderie. Employees felt more valued, more heard, and more secure. The positive press surrounding Sterling Innovations' commitment to ethical practices and social responsibility soared, attracting top talent who sought more than just a paycheck. They sought purpose. The Compassion Project, now a flagship initiative, continued to expand, its success a constant reminder of the positive change that could be achieved when kindness was at the core. Alexander, as Alex, had anticipated Bethany's move. He had been monitoring her digital footprint closely, preparing for just such an escalation. He had already secured irrefutable proof of her tampering, but he needed to present it in a way that wouldn't expose his true identity. "With your permission, sir," he continued, addressing the executive, "I can cross-reference the file's timestamp and version history. I have a hunch the correct version might still be retrievable, or at least we can trace the last modification." Alara, from her quiet retreat, began to witness these changes. News reports, once filled with the scandalous details of the gala, now highlighted Sterling Innovations' new direction and Alexander Sterling's unwavering commitment to ethical leadership. Former colleagues, cautiously reaching out, spoke of a transformed workplace, a place where genuine talent was recognized and kindness was celebrated. She saw photographs of the renovated community center, bustling with children, a tangible testament to the project she had poured her heart into. The executive, intrigued by Alex's unusual confidence and technical insight, nodded. "Proceed, Mr. Stone." But it was the subtle, anonymous support for Lily that truly began to melt the ice around Alara's heart. The best medical care, the sudden disappearance of mounting bills, the peace of mind that allowed her to focus solely on her sister's recovery. She knew, deep down, that only one person could have orchestrated such a miracle. It wasn't about buying forgiveness, it was about unconditional care, a love that transcended the pain of deception. Alexander moved to the main presentation computer, his fingers flying across the keyboard with a speed and precision that belied his junior employee status. He navigated through complex system logs, pulling up a detailed audit trail of the tampered file. Within minutes, a clear, undeniable timeline appeared on the screen, showing Bethany's user ID making unauthorized modifications to Alara's file, followed by an attempted deletion of the original. He then, with a flourish, retrieved the untampered original version from a deep backup, displaying it triumphantly. One afternoon, visiting Lily in the hospital, Alara saw Alexander. He wasn't in a suit, he was dressed simply, sitting quietly by Lily's bedside, reading a storybook to her. His presence was unassuming, gentle, reminiscent of Alex Stone. He looked up, his eyes meeting hers, filled with a quiet humility and a profound love that needed no words. He didn't rush to explain or apologize again. He simply existed in that space, a silent testament to his unwavering commitment. The room fell silent, then erupted in murmurs. Bethany's face, initially smug, turned ashen, her carefully constructed facade crumbling. The evidence was irrefutable. The senior executive, his face a mask of controlled fury, turned his gaze from the screen to Bethany, then back to Alara. "Ms. Vance," he said, his voice now tinged with apology, "my sincerest apologies. It appears you were unjustly accused. And Mr. Stone, your quick thinking and expertise have saved us from a grave error." Alara watched him, truly seeing him for the first time since the gala. She saw the genuine remorse in his eyes, the profound changes he had enacted, and the quiet, consistent support he had given her and Lily. The anger and betrayal, though still a raw wound, began to recede, replaced by a nascent understanding. She realized that while the deception had been painful, his intentions had been pure, and his love undeniably real. Alara stared at Alex, her eyes wide with shock and a profound sense of relief. He had come to her rescue, not with grand gestures, but with quiet competence and unwavering support. He hadn't just cleared her name, he had exposed the treachery that had plagued her. The scales of justice had balanced, not just for Bethany, but for Sterling Innovations, and most importantly, for Alara. She saw that Alexander had not just sought to clear her name, but to fundamentally transform the very environment that had allowed such malice to fester. He had proven, through his actions, that his love was not fleeting, nor was it based on a test. It was a deep, abiding commitment, a willingness to fight for what was right, and to build a future founded on the very kindness he had discovered in her. Slowly, tentatively, Alara began to consider the possibility of forgiveness, and with it, a new beginning. The hospital room, once a place of quiet anxiety, now hummed with a gentle warmth. Lily, her eyes brighter, her laughter more frequent, was a testament to the profound changes Alexander had orchestrated. Alara watched him read to her sister, his voice soft and steady, his presence a comforting anchor. In that moment, the last vestiges of her anger and betrayal began to dissipate, replaced by a profound understanding and a burgeoning sense of peace. Bethany, cornered and exposed, tried to stammer out an excuse, but her words were hollow. The executive, without hesitation, informed her that her actions constituted gross misconduct and that a full internal investigation would commence immediately. Likely leading to her dismissal, justice, swift and undeniable, had been served. Later that week, Alara sought him out, not in the bustling office, but in a quiet park near the hospital, a neutral ground where their conversation could unfold without the weight of corporate expectations. The autumn leaves crunched underfoot as they walked, a comfortable silence settling between them, a stark contrast to the tumultuous emotions of the past weeks. The incident left Alara shaken but deeply grateful. She found herself looking at Alex with new eyes. He wasn't just helpful, he was brilliant, perceptive, and fiercely loyal. She saw the quiet strength in him, the unwavering resolve to do what was right. He had been her silent protector, a guardian angel in disguise. The bond between them, already strong, deepened exponentially, transforming into a reliance and admiration that bordered on something more profound. Alexander, watching her relief and gratitude, felt a surge of triumph, not just for clearing her name, but for solidifying the genuine connection they shared. A connection forged in the crucible of adversity. The aftermath of Bethany's exposure left a profound impact on both Alara and Alexander. For Alara, the relief was immense, a heavy weight lifted from her shoulders. Yet it was quickly replaced by a burgeoning sense of admiration and a stirring of emotions for Alex. He had not only saved her reputation, but had done so with a quiet strength and intelligence that captivated her. She found herself drawn to his steady gaze, his comforting presence, and the way he seemed to understand her without her having to utter a single word. Alexander, Ilara began, her voice soft. I understand now. She looked at him, her hazel eyes clear and steady. The deception, it hurt, more than you can imagine. But I've seen your actions, the changes you've made at Sterling Innovations, the unwavering support you've given Lily. You didn't just clear my name, you transformed an entire culture. And you did it because you truly believe in kindness, in integrity, because you saw it in me. She began to seek him out more often, not just for work-related matters, but for casual conversations during lunch breaks or after hours. She shared stories about Lily, the small victories and the daunting challenges, and found in Alex a listener who offered genuine empathy and thoughtful advice. He was different from anyone she had ever met, unassuming yet incredibly insightful, kind yet fiercely protective. A warmth began to bloom in her chest whenever he was near, a feeling she hadn't experienced in years, a quiet hope that dared to whisper of something more. She saw him as her anchor, her unexpected confidant, and unknowingly, the man who was slowly, irrevocably, capturing her heart. Alexander stopped, turning to face her, his heart soaring with a fragile hope. Alara, he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. I never meant to hurt you. My only intention was to understand, to find authenticity. And in you, I found everything I never knew I was looking for. A strength, a compassion, a goodness that reshaped my entire world. I fell in love with you. Alara. Not the idea of you, but the real you. The woman who carries the weight of the world with such grace and still finds room in her heart for others. For Alexander, the triumph of protecting Alara was bittersweet. He had witnessed her vulnerability, her quiet strength, and her unwavering kindness firsthand. And in doing so, he had fallen deeply, irrevocably in love. It was a feeling he had never anticipated, a raw, powerful emotion that shook the very foundations of his carefully constructed world. He, the man who had always been in control, found himself utterly consumed by the thought of Alara Vance, her genuine smile, her tired but determined eyes. The way she carried her burdens with such grace, every facet of her being resonated with him. He reached out, gently taking her hands. I know it's a lot to forgive, but every action I've taken since that night has been to prove to you that my feelings are real, that my commitment is unwavering. I want to build a future with you. Ilara. One based on absolute honesty, mutual respect, and the shared values that brought us together. The deception, however, now weighed on him like a lead cloak. He saw the trust in her eyes, the growing affection in her gestures, and it twisted his gut with guilt. How could he, the CEO of Sterling Innovations, have allowed this charade to go on for so long? He yearned to shed the disguise, to confess his true identity, to lay bare his heart and the depths of his feelings for her. But the fear of her reaction paralyzed him. Would she feel betrayed? Would the trust they had built so painstakingly shatter into a million pieces? Would she see him as a manipulative, powerful figure, rather than the kind, supportive Alex she had come to know and care for? Alara looked into his eyes, seeing not the powerful CEO, but the kind, earnest Alex who had stood by her side. She saw his genuine remorse, his profound love, and the undeniable truth in his words. The pain was still there, a faint echo, but it was overshadowed by the warmth of his sincerity and the undeniable connection that had always existed between them. He wrestled with the dilemma daily. He imagined scenarios, rehearsed confessions, and agonized over the potential fallout. He knew the revelation was inevitable. His undercover mission was nearing its planned conclusion. He had achieved his objective. He had seen the true heart of his company. And in Alara, he had found something infinitely more valuable than corporate insights. But the path to revealing that truth and the potential cost filled him with dread. A soft smile touched her lips. "It's not easy," she confessed. "But I forgive you, Alexander." One evening, as they worked late on a shared project, a comfortable silence settled between them. Alara looked up from her screen, her eyes meeting his. "You know, Alex," she began softly, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. "I don't know what I would have done without you these past few weeks. You've been incredible." In that moment, the park seemed to brighten, the world around them fading into insignificance. Alexander pulled her into a gentle embrace, a silent promise of a future built on trust and unwavering affection. Alexander's heart pounded. This was it, the moment to confess. His lips parted, but the words caught in his throat. He saw the genuine affection in her eyes, the nascent hope, and he couldn't bring himself to shatter it. Not yet. He wasn't ready to risk losing that precious connection. Their relationship blossomed into a powerful partnership. Alara, no longer just an administrative assistant, became a key figure in Sterling Innovations, leading the expanded Compassion Project and championing employee well-being initiatives. Her empathy and practical wisdom, combined with Alexander's strategic vision and boundless resources, transformed the company into a true force for good, a model for ethical corporate citizenship. "Just doing my part, Alara," he managed, his voice a little rougher than intended. He quickly diverted the conversation back to the project, the opportunity slipping through his fingers. He hated himself for his cowardice, but the fear of her hurt, of her anger, was too overwhelming. They built a life together, filled with quiet joys and shared purpose. Lily thrived, her laughter echoing through their beautiful home, a constant reminder of the kindness that had brought them together. Alexander, once a solitary figure at the pinnacle of power, found true happiness in Alara's love, a love forged in the crucible of truth and understanding. He had gone undercover to test a company, but he had discovered a love that tested his own heart, and in doing so, found his true destiny. Kindness had not only been rewarded but had become the very foundation of their extraordinary future. As Alara continued to develop deeper feelings for Alex, seeing him as a beacon of kindness and support, Alexander's internal struggle intensified. He was living a double life, torn between the man he was pretending to be and the man he truly was, and the man he desperately wanted to be for her. The unspoken language of their hearts was growing louder, a symphony of burgeoning affection on her side, and a tumultuous storm of love and guilt on his. The truth, however, loomed, a formidable barrier between their budding connection and a future that could either be beautiful or irrevocably broken. A new initiative swept through Sterling Innovations, a beacon of corporate social responsibility that resonated deeply with Alara. The Sterling Community Compassion Project was announced, a large-scale endeavor aimed at revitalizing underserved neighborhoods through educational programs and healthcare support. For Alara, this wasn't just another company project, it was a personal mission. Her experiences with Lily had instilled in her a profound understanding of the struggles faced by vulnerable communities, and she saw this as an opportunity to make a tangible difference. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Stay with us for the next one, and while you're here, check out our other videos. There's always more to explore. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments below. Alara volunteered immediately, her quiet dedication transforming into an almost fierce passion. She immersed herself in the project, poring over proposals, coordinating with local charities, and organizing volunteer schedules. Her empathy, usually a subtle undercurrent in her daily interactions, now shone brightly. She approached every task with a meticulousness that impressed even the most seasoned project managers, and her ability to connect with people, to truly listen to their needs, made her an invaluable asset. Alexander, still Alex Stone, watched her with a mixture of pride and awe. He had been instrumental in green-lighting this project, specifically designing it to align with the company's new focus on ethical leadership and community engagement, a focus subtly influenced by his observations of Alara. Now, seeing her pour her heart and soul into it, he felt a deeper confirmation of her extraordinary character. He immediately volunteered to work alongside her, eager to witness her leadership and compassion firsthand, and to spend more time in her magnetic presence. Working side by side on the Compassion Project brought them closer than ever. They spent long hours in meetings, brainstorming ideas, and even visiting potential community sites. Alexander, with his disguised intellect, offered strategic insights that Alara found incredibly helpful, often streamlining processes or identifying potential pitfalls she hadn't considered. He saw her in a new light, not just as a kind administrative assistant, but as a natural leader, a visionary with a heart of gold. Her organizational skills were impeccable, her problem-solving abilities sharp, and her unwavering commitment to the project was inspiring. One afternoon, during a site visit to a dilapidated community center that the project aimed to renovate, Alara spoke passionately about the impact it would have on the children there. Her voice, usually soft, resonated with conviction. "It's not just about a building, Alex," she said, her eyes shining with emotion. "It's about giving them a safe space, a chance to learn, to dream, to be healthy. Every child deserves that." Alexander watched her, captivated. In that moment, he saw not just the woman he was falling in love with, but the embodiment of everything he wished Sterling Innovations could be a force for genuine good in the world. He found himself increasingly torn. The project was a resounding success, largely due to Alara's tireless efforts. The company's reputation soared, and the positive impact on the community was undeniable. But with the project nearing its completion, the end of his undercover assignment loomed large. He had witnessed Alara's compassion, her resilience, and her unwavering spirit. He had seen her dedication to others, even when facing her own immense struggles. Every shared laugh, every late-night discussion, every moment of quiet understanding had only deepened his affection, transforming it into an unconditional love. The thought of revealing his true identity, of shattering the comfortable, trusting dynamic they had built, filled him with a renewed sense of dread. He knew he had to do it, and soon. The longer he waited, the more painful the truth might be for Alara. He also knew that the success of the Compassion Project, and Alara's pivotal role in it, would provide the perfect public platform for his revelation. He just had to find the courage and the right moment to face the consequences of his deception, hoping that the depth of his love and the genuine good he had fostered would be enough to earn her forgiveness. The stage was set for the grand unveiling, and Alexander knew, with a heavy heart, that the moment of truth was finally at hand. As the Sterling Community Compassion Project neared its triumphant conclusion, a palpable buzz filled the halls of Sterling Innovations. The success was undeniable, a testament to the collective effort, but largely attributed to Alara's passionate leadership and meticulous execution. The company's reputation had soared, and the positive impact on the community was already being felt. For Alexander, however, this celebratory atmosphere was tinged with a growing anxiety. The time for his undercover assignment to end was rapidly approaching, and with it, the moment of truth he both longed for and dreaded. He had meticulously planned the revelation. The upcoming annual gala, a lavish event celebrating the company's achievements and introducing its future vision, would be the perfect stage. It was a public forum, a moment of grand announcement, where he could not only unveil his true identity, but also publicly acknowledge Alara's invaluable contributions and the profound impact she had made on him. And on Sterling Innovations itself, he envisioned a moment of clarity, a powerful confession of his intentions and his burgeoning love. Yet, the anxiety consumed him. He found himself replaying countless scenarios in his mind, each one ending with Alara's face contorted in anger, her eyes filled with betrayal. He had built a connection with her based on a carefully constructed lie, a necessary deception for his mission, but a deception nonetheless. Would she understand his motives? Would she forgive him for the elaborate charade? The thought of losing her, of shattering the fragile trust they had painstakingly built, was a torment he hadn't anticipated. In that moment, Alexander felt a profound shift. His initial professional curiosity had not just transformed into admiration, It was evolving into something far more personal. He wasn't just observing a good employee, he was witnessing the quiet heroism of a woman who faced her own battles, with unwavering strength and extended kindness to a world that often overlooked her. He had come to test the waters of his company, but he was finding his own heart being tested and irrevocably changed by the echoes of Alara's empathy. Alexander's observations of Alara, initially a strategic part of his undercover mission, had now become a consuming fascination. He found himself not just watching her at work, but subtly, discreetly, trying to piece together the fragments of her life outside the office, the guarded expressions, the frugal habits, the hurried phone calls. They all hinted at a deeper narrative, one he was compelled to understand. Meanwhile, subtle clues about Alex's unusual knowledge and influence began to surface, making Alara slightly curious and uneasy. She noticed how effortlessly he navigated complex corporate jargon, how he seemed to anticipate the needs of senior executives before they even voiced them, and how he possessed an uncanny ability to resolve technical issues that stumped even seasoned IT personnel. His insights during project meetings often went beyond what a junior administrative assistant should realistically know. Alexander Sterling, a name synonymous with innovation and unparalleled success in the tech world, found himself staring out the panoramic window of his opulent office, a sense of profound ennui settling over him. Sterling Innovations, the empire he had meticulously built from the ground up, was a marvel of modern enterprise, yet he felt a growing disconnect. The gleaming towers, the endless reports, the polished smiles of his executives, it all felt sterile. He had achieved everything, but at what cost? He yearned for authenticity, for a glimpse into the true heart of his company, beyond the carefully curated presentations and filtered feedback. One afternoon, during a casual conversation, Alara mentioned a highly confidential company acquisition rumor she had overheard. "It's just office gossip, I guess," she mused. But apparently, Sterling Innovations is about to acquire this huge AI startup. Alex, without missing a beat, responded with a detailed analysis of the potential synergies and market implications, a level of insight that made Alara pause. He quickly caught himself, offering a vague explanation about reading a lot of industry reports, but the moment lingered. "I need to see it for myself," he murmured, his gaze sweeping over the bustling city below. He needed to understand the pulse of his employees, the real challenges they faced, the genuine spirit that fueled their daily grind. And so, a radical idea, one that bordered on the audacious, began to take root. He would shed his CEO persona, trade his bespoke suits for off-the-rack attire, and step into the shoes of a junior employee. He would become Alex Stone. Later, she noticed him in a hushed conversation with a high-ranking executive, a conversation that seemed far too serious and intimate for a junior employee. The executive, usually reserved, was listening intently to Alex, nodding in agreement. When Alex saw Alara, he quickly disengaged, offering a casual wave, but the image of their intense discussion remained etched in her mind. The transformation was meticulous. A new wardrobe, a subtle change in hairstyle, even a slightly altered gait. He studied the resumes of entry-level staff, crafting a plausible backstory that would allow him to blend in seamlessly. The objective was simple: observe, learn, and uncover the unspoken truths within Sterling Innovations. He wasn't looking for flaws to exploit, but for character to admire, for the kind of integrity that often went unnoticed in the upper echelons of power.